Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm your host, Curtis Smith. Thank you for joining us tonight, and a big thank you to our community partners. A huge thank you to Prime 47 Downtown, Shepherd Community Center, and Tesco. Without their support, we would not be here. And without the partnership of WHMB TV 40, this show would not be happening. Those partnerships aren't simply built around Restoring Hope, the TV show, they're built around relationships. And relationship is at the heart of what Crosswinds Counseling does with its corporate partners. Tonight, we want to talk about the corporate counseling program. And joining us to tell us more about how it works is Colleen Terrell, the Director of Business Development for Crosswinds. Colleen, thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks, Curtis.
Tell us a little bit about corporate counseling. How does it work in the Crosswinds counseling world?
So, originally, we tried to create this program for companies that would allow their employees who were struggling with all kinds of issues, whether at home or at work, to be more successful. So we came up with this program where they could access 5 sessions of counseling at no cost to the employee for themselves and anybody in their home. And what we found was this allowed the business owners to get back to doing what they do well, and allowed it to be a resource for them that they could offer their employees when they were struggling, where they could reach out for help.
Right now in our world, this seems more important than ever. I assume, just like we're seeing across the entire spectrum, the need for these services has risen incredibly through the pandemic. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. We're seeing burnout, job burnout, stress, anxiety, depression. Obviously, addictions, we already know, are on the rise. So marriages. So I think anybody who had maybe an area of their life that they were struggling with, it's kind of amplified.
One of the things that strikes me about it too is employers really have to do things that differentiate themselves from other employers, because the job market is so strange right now and it's so hard to get people and to retain them. So when you have a program like corporate counseling from Crosswinds Counseling, it really does serve as a recruiting tool, but it also helps retention, I would assume.
Yes, so our original partners that we'd started with over 4 years ago, they found that they had increased retention by 10%, which
Wow.
was huge because they, year after year, it was lower and lower and lower. So they were so thrilled with it. And you're exactly right, it is a great recruiting tool, even for our own company who uses our corporate counseling.
If you can increase retention even by 5-10%, I mean, that just saves so much money, so much time for an organization.
Yeah.
Tell me this, Colleen, what is it about the way Crosswinds does corporate counseling that is different? What is it that separates Crosswinds from other EAP programs that you might hear about?
Probably the biggest way we're different is that when you reach out to get counseling with an EAP, you get a list of numbers to call. And when you reach out with Crosswinds Corporate Counseling, you get Crosswinds counselors. And so right away, we help schedule you and we help work with you to see a counselor. And we know how much courage it takes to make that first phone call. And so if you're making that first phone call, or you're reaching out via our website and you're getting a list of more work to do, you're less apt to keep going because you're already at a time where you might be discouraged. And so the fact that we have warm, caring people that are there ready to help you and there's nothing else you have to do makes it so much easier to get started.
And I love the part that it's not just for the employee, but for the employee's family, which fits perfectly in the model of Crosswinds, caring about people, but caring about families. Taking care of a family is so important to Crosswinds, and to be able to do it that way is just incredible.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of counseling organizations don't work with children and teens, and we love working with children and teens and adults. So you're exactly right. We believe that the whole family needs to be healthy to be successful.
Right. Let's talk about how people can get engaged with Crosswinds. If someone's out there and they're a business owner or decision maker for an organization and they know that they need this kind of service but haven't been sure of how to go about that, how can people connect with Crosswinds to investigate if corporate counseling is right for them?
Yeah, I would just reach out to crosswindscounseling.org. That would be the best way. And on there's all kinds of resources and all kinds of contact information. So you can learn more, and you can also give us your information and we can reach out to tell you more.
And Colleen, last thing, tell me about some of the successes you've seen with organizations here in Indianapolis. I know we have a growing list of corporate counseling partners in Indianapolis. What does the feedback look like from them? Besides retention, what are they telling you is happening on a heart level as they dive into corporate counseling?
So the thing about corporate counseling is it's completely confidential. So the employers don't know who's being seen, which is so important. But what I love is that we've already had employers get back to us and say, oh, we had somebody come up and tell us how much they love their counselor and what a difference it's making for them. And so just to already hear that kind of feedback and to know that they're starting to tell their other coworkers that, oh, you should reach out to Crosswinds Counseling. I have a counselor and I love them.
That is awesome. Crosswindscounseling.org is the spot to go to find a counselor, or if you're looking for corporate counseling, a great service there as well. Colleen, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Restoring Hope.
Yeah.
We will be right back.
Shepherd works with both the first and second generation to break the cycle of poverty. It's a two-gen approach to say we want to help the parents and the students to help them have the tools for them to break the cycle of poverty.
You know, it's easy to think programs make a difference, but we know from 35 years of experience, relationships is effective.
In this world, we don't need more programs. We need to know that more people care for us.
Welcome back to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. We're into the holiday season now, and in many ways, even though the weather is changing and we have less sunlight and less time outside, this is the busiest and most stressful time of the year for many people. In our Counseling Corner this evening, we meet Catherine DeVinny, a counselor with Crosswinds Counseling. Catherine reminds us that stress is powerful, and she helps us to understand how we can better deal with it.
Hi, I'm Catherine DeVinny, and I'm a therapist here at Crosswinds Counseling, and I'd like to talk about stress and completing the stress response cycle. So stress is a neurological and physiological shift that happens inside of our body when we perceive a threat. And a threat is that stressor. A stressor can be internal or external. External can be anything from work and family to money or discrimination. Internal stressors is that self-criticism, that negative self-talk, body image, or even worrying about the future. All of those things are perceived by the body as a potential threat. And in order to work through that and to process that stress, we have to speak body language. We can't just talk ourselves out of it. We can't just tell ourselves that we're okay now and the threat is over. We have to do something to let our body know we're safe. And there are different things that we can do. You can do physical activity. You can go running for 30 minutes. If that's not your thing, that's okay. I don't like to run either. So you can do a body tense, or you can do a big old cry, or you can have that social connection. You can hang out with a loved one, with a friend, with your pet, or you can compliment a stranger. You can get creative, write a song or a poem or a story. It doesn't have to be about what stressed you out. It can just be about anything. Just create something. You can sing a song. Any of those things are going to help make that shift inside your body and reduce those cortisol levels so that your body knows the world is a safe place again and that you are safe. Wellness is not a state of being, it's a state of action. And if you're ready to take that step, any one of us here at Crosswinds Counseling can help you dig deeper into how to complete the stress response cycle.
What a great message from Catherine this evening. She is one of the wonderful and skilled counselors at Crosswinds Counseling. And now we are privileged to have another one with us here tonight. Grant Anderson is joining us tonight. He's a counselor here in Indianapolis. Grant, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Give us an overview of Crosswinds Counseling. What is it that makes Crosswinds so special?
So yeah, we are existing to help those around needing. We are in a time with mental health where we have so many people coming out of the woodwork for mental health needs. Anxiety and depression is on the rise. And so just having a place both in office and then telehealth, because we see them using both, has just been a tremendous place for people to come and meet the services they're really needing.
Are people utilizing both? We hear so much in the business world, so many Zoom meetings. Are people actually utilizing that service for counseling well during this pandemic phase of life?
It does depend on the type of client, of who wants to be in person, who wants to be in telehealth. I mean, there's a certain kind of client that we don't necessarily see on telehealth, whether they're high risk, whether they have suicidal ideations. We don't bring them into telehealth because it's just not appropriate. But we are seeing a lot of people who maybe are scared to go into that office or scared to even call into someone or more comfortable meeting with someone online.
Grant, you talked about the increased need. Has it been across the spectrum, or have there been certain things that over the last year and a half have really risen to the top among people that you're seeing?
Yeah, with the isolation of the last year, we're seeing anxiety, I think, left and right is coming out. People who didn't have symptoms of stress and anxiety in their life are now coming into counseling saying, I'm having anxiety for the first time, or it's exacerbated like it's never been before. And so we're seeing a lot of that coming out.
When you dive into those issues with people, obviously you can't share any specific stories, but what does that path out of anxiety look like when you're actually diving into someone's anxiety and stress and helping them to work through those issues? What does that look like when you do that with a Crosswinds counselor?
So the symptoms can look different for each kind of person and client. Specifically, I'm thinking of an individual who, for him, it came off more obsessive compulsive. The anxiety came out in a specific world. For him, it was the spiritual, supernatural world, wondering if he was saved or not saved by every little thing. So whether if he didn't pick this up, was he going to hell? If he didn't sit there, was his spiritual eternal damnation, in effect?
Wow.
And so that anxiety continued to increase into an obsessive compulsive place. And so when we met, we first began working on it from that anxiety place and slowly started putting in what we call a kind of anxiety hierarchy, so things that he could do to slowly address the anxiety and use coping skills that would bring it down in the moment so that he knew he was in control of the anxiety, not the other way around.
When someone is functioning with that level of anxiety, I assume when the surrounding world gets more stressful and more anxious, it only compounds the problem, right? So if this is an issue before the pandemic and then we get into a pandemic, all of those things go through the roof. Is that right?
Right. And so for people who had the anxiety beforehand, who all of a sudden now they're isolated or they can't connect with friends or they have anxiety about even going out of their house now, those stress and those symptoms go through the roof.
Let's talk about the stigma around getting counseling, because I think 5-10 years ago, it was a much greater thing. It was certainly a real thing. Are we seeing the stigma actually starting to wane? I mean, we hope that it is, but is it actually waning?
I believe so. I think we're starting to see not just more, but across the generations coming into counseling. I think the younger generations are lessening the stigma a great deal, and I think the telehealth has actually helped a lot with people feeling that they can come to counseling now.
I think in a person my age, if you're 50 or older, you probably think, oh, you've got to hit rock bottom. You've got to be in a really bad spot to need a counselor. That's not the case. Sometimes it's just working through things. That sounded like an extreme example that you were giving about questioning salvation at every turn, but there's more normal everyday things that you can work through with a counselor that might make a lot of sense for a lot of people. Is that right?
Right, and we're seeing people come in for just self-growth. They want to better understand where they're heading in their career, or sometimes it's, I want to work on this small level of anger. It hasn't affected my life where it's unstable, but I want to get help somewhere. And so they're coming in for a much less severe instability kind of issues.
Tell me about your career, Grant. You've been with Crosswinds for about a year here in Indianapolis, and you're on the north side of town.
Yep.
What is it that drew you to Crosswinds for your profession?
I think just a chance to work with individuals who are in such a need of services, but also just be able to meet them where they're at before things get so out of hand that the state gets involved. I think it's being able to, I think Crosswinds for me was a chance to get in there and help them grow before incarceration, before the Department of Child Services came in, before other things, they got kids get sending off to residential facilities. I wanted to be able to kind of almost do preventive work in the therapy world I was working in.
That feels like it's heavy lifting every day. How, as a counselor, do you make sure to do self-care?
Yeah.
How do you make sure that you stay in a healthy spot so that you can then help others?
I think a big part of that is taking their own medicine. We got to make sure that we're using our own coping skills. If we're going to teach someone, this is what you got to do to have boundaries in your life, have, stress management, making sure that we're doing that as well.
That is critical, isn't it?
It is absolutely critical.
Let's talk about someone looking for Crosswinds Counseling help. How do they go about it? How can they reach out to you here in Indianapolis to start that path of getting counseling?
That's one of the things they can call into our crosswindscounseling.org as their website, and then we will actually connect them up with a best fit therapist. So one of the things that we like to do is not just give them a therapist that has an opening or is free, but try to find someone who's going to meet their needs and have the best fit relationship possible, because we know that the relationship in counseling is so vital to therapeutic success.
And the Christian perspective too, that biblical foundation. I know from a Crosswinds perspective, it's core to who we are, but it's not something we hit people over the head with either.
Right, so we do see clients coming in without knowing that we're a faith-based organization. So we get an opportunity to talk about what it means to be a faith-based organization, as well as then explaining that, we don't just throw or slam, faith into your face in therapy. We let the client kind of drive that. Sometimes they want it, sometimes they don't. That doesn't mean we don't pray for clients outside of sessions. It doesn't mean we're not thinking about clients and praying over them before sessions.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Grant, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you. I know in the next couple of weeks you're going to provide our counseling corner a couple of times, so thanks for doing that. Keep an eye out for Grant. He will be here frequently on Restoring Hope. Grant, thank you for being with us tonight. We'll be right back.
In the heart of downtown Indy, at the corner of Pennsylvania and Maryland Streets, it's Prime 47, the city's only independent, locally owned and operated steakhouse, offering gourmet dishes, the highest quality steaks, fresh seafood, and an extensive wine list. Prime 47 specializes in large parties and events. So, whether it's dinner for 2 or 200, it's prime time you visit Prime 47, Indy's Steakhouse, for the finest in dining.
Worry, conflict, and fatigue don't have to rule your life. There are always challenges, and working with a counselor to navigate them may be the best decision for you. Crosswinds counselors are compassionate, qualified, and dedicated, and they can give you the support you deserve. Whether navigating crisis or seeking personal growth, this is your pivotal moment. Contact us today. Years from now, you'll remember today as the day hope was reignited.
Welcome back. Each week here on Restoring Hope, we carve out a few minutes to talk about the most important word in the title of our show, hope. It's very easy to go through this life and notice the lack of hope and to see the devastating impact on people who are not living with hope. At Crosswinds Counseling, hope is central to who we are, and not just here in this temporary world, but because of the eternal hope we find in Jesus Christ. It's His love and His hope which we strive to pass on to others. Tonight, Gordon Haynes, one of the executives at Crosswinds Counseling, joins us to talk about the idea of having hope in today's world.
Hi, my name's Gordon. I'm a member of the Crosswinds executive team, and tonight I want to talk about hope. I looked up the definition of hope in Webster's dictionary, and it's defined as to want something to happen or to be true, and to believe that it can happen or that it can be true. Now, why do I want to define what hope is? Because, well, briefly, I want to talk about what's the impact of hopelessness. When people are hopeless, there's an increase in violence in schools, there's an increase in domestic violence, there's an increase in anxiety and depression, self-harm, addictions. It just is a real negative for our society. Now, the reason I say this is there is reams of research, and I'm not going to quote a lot of research tonight, but I do want to share some with you because I looked it up. Do you know that hopelessness leads to unhealthy moods? And if you have an unhealthy mood, then your view of yourself, the people around you, and society around you is very negative. And those negative views impact how you live your life. You couple that with the fact that Pew Research says kids in America, in fact 70% of teens between the age of 13 and 17, are seeing increased levels of anxiety and depression. Now, none of this information brings you hope. I'm sorry for that, but there is good news. There are also studies out there that say hope can be taught. And when people choose to be hopeful, or people are taught to be hopeful, guess what happens? They have better academic performance. They're happier. They're living more fulfilled lives. There was a study by Snyder that said people had enhanced personal relationships and much more fulfilled lives. There was another study by Rand and Chevens in 2008 that determined that the greater the hope, the greater the level of well-being. Hope is a choice, and we can learn to be hopeful. So if you're someone that is without hope, I hope that you get help and learn how to be a hopeful person. I personally am a follower of Jesus Christ, and I find hope in my faith. There's a verse that I live by. It's Luke chapter 1, verse 37. I'm going to paraphrase it. Basically, it says, faith does not make things easy. We all know life is not easy, but faith makes things possible. That gives me hope. You know, we can't choose the circumstances that we live in, but we can choose how we react to those circumstances, how we view those situations, and what actions we take to turn those situations into good situations. I hope you find hope.
Shepherd works with both the first and second generation to break the cycle of poverty. It's a two-gen approach to say we want to help the parents and the students to help them have the tools for them to break the cycle of poverty.
You know, it's easy to think programs make a difference, but we know from 35 years of experience, relationships is effective.
In this world, we don't need more programs. We need to know that more people care for us.
In the heart of downtown Indy, at the corner of Pennsylvania and Maryland Streets, it's Prime 47, the city's only independent, locally owned and operated steakhouse, offering gourmet dishes, the highest quality steaks, fresh seafood, and an extensive wine list. Prime 47 specializes in large parties and events. So, whether it's dinner for 2 or 200, it's prime time you visit Prime 47, Indy's Steakhouse, for the finest in dining.
Welcome back. Tonight we've met counselors from Crosswinds. We've seen the impact Crosswinds is making on businesses all over the state, and we received a great reminder from Crosswinds executive Gordon Haynes. Maybe you've heard these messages and you haven't thought about how you need to get help yourself. Rather, you've been moved to think of how you might be able to help others in a powerful way. If you are a counselor, therapist, or mental health provider, and you would like to pursue a career with Crosswinds Counseling, we are looking for great women and men to invest into the lives of people and make a real difference. There are job openings in other fields too. If you would like to join the Crosswinds Counseling family, you can visit this website that you see on your screen right now, crosswindscounseling.org/careers, to see those career opportunities at Crosswinds. If you know of people who are looking for work in this field, please let them know about Crosswinds Counseling. Right now, we have a tremendous need for people to join us in this impactful work of bringing hope to people. With that, our time is up tonight. Thank you for joining us. Next week, another great show lined up. We have two special guests with us, Jim Merritt and Scott Hockett. I hope you can join us next Thursday at 9:30. Have a wonderful week. Be blessed. We'll see you next week.